And this is the day 10. Day 10 is when Bhishmacharya, 18 days of war. More than half of it is over. Yeah, day 10, we are the halfway through. So for the first 50% of the war, Bhishma was there leading the forces, and Pandavas saw small victories, not huge ones, but mostly they were devastated. They were killed. They were slaughtered. They lost thousands and thousands of people. Both the sides saw losses. There is no doubt about it. But Pandava army saw major losses when Bhishmacharya was. Give it to Mike.
You know how the Pandava side had 7 armies with
7 Akshauhini. Yeah.
How many of them are still remaining?
I don't know. They were 11, but I don't know how many are left right now at this point of time. That's not mentioned. I think after Drona Parva, there is a mention of how much is remaining. That the tally sheet, they talk about that. I'll tell you when we get there. Today, the war starts. The war is going on. People are killing each other, but there is no life in the war. Dronacharya calls upon, at a certain point of time, Dronacharya calls upon Ashwathama and he says, I don't know, somehow I feel very, very disoriented today. I am in a very confused state when I'm trying to call upon or when I'm trying to remember a astra. I'm not able to get that mantra. I'm not able to call upon that Adhisthana Devata. I'm feeling very disoriented. My mind is very, very wavering and confused.
Wait, who said that? Dronacharya?
Dronacharya. Okay. Dronacharya says that to Ashwathama. And I have a feeling that we are going to lose Bhishma today. I somehow feel that. I can sense that. So people at that level have that intuition, this is called sixth sense, right? Sometimes your gut feeling says that something wrong is going to happen. And these people are so powerful. They not only know there's something going to happen, they precisely pinpointedly know what wrong is going to happen. So Dronacharya calls upon Ashwathama and he expresses his worry, and he says that I can see all those signs. The vultures are hovering over the Kauravas army alone, not on the Pandavas army, and there are thunderbolts, and there are no clouds, but there are thunders. So all these kind of signs are indication that some catastrophic event is going to happen, and monotonously people are killing each other. And Shikandi comes face to face with Bhishmacharya so many times, and the killing doesn't happen. Finally, at a certain point, even with and Bhishma also knows that he's going to get killed, right? Even after knowing that, he wages a war with the brother of Virata. His name is Setanika. Who else is Setanika? Virata Raja's brother's name is Shatanika, and Bhishma wages a war with Shatanika and he kills Shatanika. There is another guy in Mahabharata whose name is also Shatanika. I'll give you a hint. Upapandavas.
Oh, Nakula's son?
Correct. Nakula's son is Shatanika. So he kills Shatanika. Even in that kind of a state, he's delivering his duty. So I'm telling you this point because even at the fag end of his life, or knowing that he's going to be dead today in the war, he's doing what he's supposed to do, what is expected out of him.
Wait, does he kill Nakula's son?
Nakula's son. Shatanika is Nakula's son. Wait, I thought you said he kills Virata. Virata Raja's brother is also Shatanika. Two people have the same name. Which one did he kill? The one who's killed now is Virata Raja's brother. It's not Rupa Pandava. Virata Raja's brother. Okay? So that guy is killed, and Arjuna uses Aindrastra, Agnyastra, Varunastra, and Bhishma uses Shakti against Arjuna to counter Arjuna. So much of war is happening, and everything is happening in a very monotonous way. Like they're just doing it for the sake of doing it. Nobody is putting their heart into the war that day because Arjuna knows. Everybody, Arjuna and Bhishma, both of them know that today is the last day for Bhishma. Finally, the moment comes where Sri Krishna, he asks this guy, Shikhandi, to take over the chariot of Arjuna. And he says, you be the charioteer to Arjuna today. I will take a back step. And then they start moving towards Bhishma. So even Duryodhana and others, they also know that Bhishma should be protected from Shikhandi, right? They do their best to protect Bhishma to make sure that Bhishma is not coming face to face with Shikhandi. But other warriors on the battlefield that day, they manage to keep all the Kauravas, everybody away from Bhishma. And then they come face to face and Bhishma leaves his weapon. And from the behind, Arjuna starts delivering the arrows. Arjuna, what did he say the day before? He said he doesn't want to. But what is he doing now? Without any resistance, without Krishna even having to come and tell him that do it, he is doing what he's supposed to do. So what does this entire thing mean?
Proves Krishna's point about in the Bhagavad Gita on how that Arjuna is just someone who's fulfilling it, and the god Shiva is actually
Making this happen. So when the time comes, everybody delivers what they are supposed to deliver without any push. Whether there's a push or not, whatever has to happen will happen at whatever time it has to happen. So, yes. Yes, everybody has to perform their duty. And who is the best example for that? In this 10 days of war, who is the best example for the statement that everybody has to perform their duty?
Bhishma.
Correct, Bhishma. Even on the day, on the last day, he knows that death is waiting for him that day. In fact, it's not death. He's not going to die today. He's only going to be defeated today. He knows that is the last day, his last day on his battlefield. But still, he doesn't become weak. He doesn't deliver any less. He keeps on delivering his duty. And Bhishma doesn't need any Bhagavad Gita from Krishna, right? So, you see, it can be very... I'm not saying that Arjuna is less of a person or not duty-oriented or anything. Maybe Arjuna felt whatever he felt because the generations to come needed Bhagavad Gita. And Arjuna is a tool through whom Sri Krishna delivered Bhagavad Gita. We all needed Bhagavad Gita. That is why whatever has happened has happened. It is not to say that Arjuna was falling short of courage or anything. And Bhishma is a very good example of how to take your actions seriously and delivering your actions. So these arrows are coming, hundreds and hundreds of arrows come at the same time and pierce through the body of Bhishmacharya. So at a certain point of time, so many arrows come piercing into his body that there is not a spot on his body which doesn't have an arrow pierced. It's completely covered with arrows. It's totally covered with arrows. And while he falls down, Bhishma makes sure that his head is faced towards the east direction, and he falls down. He sets his body in such a way that his head is facing the east, and it has sunken. Yes.
Why east direction?
That is considered auspicious. Sun rises from the east. Maybe there is a scientific reason why you have to. There is a certain direction on which, towards which you are not supposed to put your head and sleep, because Earth's magnetic field is in north-south direction, right? So you're not supposed to put your head in the south direction, north direction. Yeah, east-west is the best direction to sleep. So almost all of our bedrooms, you will see that your bed is orientation of your bed is east-west, not south. That is because every human body has a magnetic field inside. Your magnetic field, your magnetic energies, and Earth's magnetic energies should not conflict when you're sleeping. If they do, it will have. If you're doing that for a very long time, for years, if you're sleeping like that, naturally your lifespan will become shorter. It doesn't happen if you're sleeping 1 day or 2 days or 1 year or 2 years. If you're doing like that for ever for a very long time, then there is an impact. Your magnetic field is in conflict with the Earth's magnetic field, and it will have some impact on you. Maybe you'll feel you'll not have sound sleep, you'll have bad dreams, you'll have disturbed sleep, your sleep patterns are not proper, your circadian rhythm gets disturbed. A lot of things can happen. Okay, coming back. So his face is towards east, and his head is like fallen, it's sunken. And then he asks, and then so at any point of time, this kind of an event happens where one of the greatest warriors has fallen. They stop the war. This is the respect that they pay for the warrior. Everybody stops the war. They go to Bhishmacharya and they express they're extremely sad, right? At the end of the day, even Duryodhana, he can talk anything, any harsh words, but at the end of the day, he is also a grandson of Bhishma. Apart from feeling that they have lost a great leader and great warrior, he also is sad that they lost their grandfather. They are losing their grandfather. And Bhishmacharya asks, I need a head support. What happened? Okay, I need a head support. And then immediately Duryodhana and all the Kauravas, they go and they get him the best of the best in soft silk pillows. But then Bhishmacharya says, this is not appropriate for a warrior who is in this kind of a state. So you need to support my head with arrows. So that is when this guy, Arjuna, he gives some support to the head using arrows, with arrows. He shoots arrows into the ground and they become the supporting structure for his head. And his head is held. And then he denies any kind of treatment. So there are doctors on the side of the Kauravas and Pandavas also, right? So all these doctors, they help relieve the pain at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, after the sunset, what typically happens is people will be strategizing for the next day war, and they will also be treating all those soldiers who got injured, grave injuries or all those things will be treated after the sunset. So those doctors come and offer some kind of treatment to Bhishmacharya, but he denies, I don't want any kind of treatment. And then he asks, I need water. My throat is really dry and I need water. And he doesn't want to drink anything other than the water that is just coming from the ground. And there is a particular astra that Arjuna uses that will bring water that will get the groundwater. And of course, if it is for Bhishma, water will come, water will emerge. Why?
He's
Son of, because he's a god.
Ganga Putrudu. So water will naturally come, right? So he uses that particular astra, water comes and that water quenches the thirst of Bhishma.
Is the war over for the day, or is it still gonna go?
It's over for the day. War is over for the day. And then the gods bless him in a way that his wounds really do not hurt him so much. And then Sri Krishna Paramatma summons people around them to make a protective shield around Bhishmacharya, and that area he will be protected, and nobody really does a war there. The battlefield moves a little further away from the place where Bhishmacharya has fallen. And I think from the heavens, they will say that, oh, this kind of a great warrior has fallen during the Dakshinayana. How sad that is. So the year is divided into two parts, Uttarayana and Dakshinayana. Uttarayana starts from the day of Sankranti, Makara Sankranti, that happens on January 15th, right? From January 15th to first half of the year is Uttarayana. And then the Dakshinayana. So it is believed that people who die during the Uttarayana, they get better afterlife prospects. They have better afterlife prospects than people who have fallen in the Dakshinayana. But for a person like Bhishmacharya, it should not really matter. Why should it matter? Because there are certain people who are over and above these kind of rules. These kind of rules apply to normal human beings. But Bhishmacharya is a god himself. It doesn't really apply. But the reason why probably they said that it is to let people know the importance of Uttarayana. And also, Bhishmacharya has a lot to deliver. his role in Mahabharata is not done. He has a lot of learning that he needs to offer to the winning side at a later point of time. So the entire Shanti Parva, which is the largest of all 18 Parvas, the entire Shanti Parva was delivered by Bhishmacharya. In Shanti Parva comes after the war. After, I don't know if it is after the Pattabhishekam or before the Pattabhishekam, I don't know that. Pattabhishekam is coronation. I don't exactly remember when that exactly happens. But while he is on that particular bed of arrows, he delivers Shanti Parva, which talks about how to rule a kingdom, how to be a good king, what is dharma, what is adharma. That brings upon Shanti, peace to Dharmaraja. We will talk about it briefly when we get there, but it is a lot of philosophy in Shanti Parva, which I won't be able to deliver. I'm not at that level. But and in the Shanti Parva, it is while Bhishmacharya is on the bed of arrows, that is when he delivers Vishnu Sahasranama. Vishnu Sahasranamam is delivered by Bhishmacharya. Yeah, Bhishmacharya.
From that onwards,
What?
Vishnu Sahasranama coming from that onwards. Before that, no Vishnu.
There is no Vishnu Sahasranamam before that. Yeah. Bhishmacharya is the one who delivered that. Yeah. And that day marks probably the decline of Kaurava army. From the next day onwards, you'll probably see Kaurava army declining. That is the day 10 of the war. Then the next general, the next army head is going to be Dronacharya. And Dronacharya also does a great job with respect to the war. And when does he die? I don't remember. Maybe on the 14th day, I think. 14th day, I believe. I'll stay corrected if I'm wrong. But as far as I remember, 14th day is when Dronacharya passes away. And while Dronacharya is leading the army, you will see a lot of questionable things happening on the battlefield. Some of those questions, it's basically between right and wrong. You will see Abhimanyu falling, Abhimanyu being killed, and the way Abhimanyu is killed is very, 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 very disturbing. And there is a day when both sides, so as long as Bhishmacharya was on the battlefield, the war ended at the sunset. There was nobody who was in a position to say things against that particular rule. Bhishmacharya was the one who was probably imposing all the rules, who came up with how this entire war should be conducted. After Bhishmacharya passes away, or after Bhishmacharya is not active on the war field anymore, there were days when they fought in the darkness. They fought after sunset. There were times when Sri Krishna himself proposes things that seem to be very, very against dharma, so much against dharma. You will start questioning, if Sri Krishna is like this, then what is the dharma that he's trying to uphold? Right? So those kind of disturbing questions crop up in the head. We will talk about them in detail when we get there. I had come prepared to talk about Drona Parva also, but somehow after talking about Bhishmacharya falling, I somehow feel I don't have energy to carry on. I feel very, very tired and sick within myself to deliver that a person like Bhishmacharya has fallen, and for the next few months he is just going to lead his life on the bed of arrows. It is called Ampasaya. In Telugu it is called Ampasaya. He's not going to eat. Only thing that he's going to take is the water that is coming from the stream of this guy, Arjuna. So yeah, with that, we should end today.